Jamie here. Hope everyone's doing outstanding. January 17th, 2025, 9 a.m. on this fine morning. Talk really quick about the market, some names I'm looking at, go from there. S&P is rallying. It was slightly higher this morning and just continues to melt higher. You had US, you had housing starts numbers come in higher than expectations, and good stuff here. SPY's over its 50-day moving average. So don't forget, it is a holiday weekend, so markets are closed on Monday. Um, and then earnings season kind of continues. So the tech sector, so the banks, which I think was kind of almost like a relief, having the banks report this week, not too much concern, especially in regards to the rates being higher for longer, the strong U.S. dollar, all those little impacts you would think might have been a concern, but that was far from the case. So that's a good sign. Then Tuesday after the close, we get Netflix. Netflix, I think it's over an 8% implied move. It's like $78, $88 somewhere in there. I'll talk about that in a second. But hopefully, if you look at the chart on Netflix, it actually looks like a pretty good setup into earnings. Just the premiums are nuts. I was looking this morning, the $1,000 strikes, the weekly strikes that expire next Friday, 1,000. So over $158 out of the money are almost, they're like 270 by 280. So the risk reward there. I mean, obviously, if it gets a 10% move, maybe those are a triple or double. But the risk, I don't know if I'd be paying that risk for that possible binary outcome. So that's the market. I was looking for the close over that 50-day moving average yesterday. We had a late session pull, so that didn't happen. So it looks like today, maybe we'll get that. And then that 600 handle on the SPY looks like it's going to come. So maybe that's going to be sometime next week. And then maybe some chop there, and then maybe some all-time highs. However crazy that is, you take a look at German markets are at all-time highs. So there are markets that all, and it's funny. People, you read headlines the last couple days, and it's like, oh, 2025 is off to a horrible start with the markets. It's like, wait a sec, the S&P is up over 1%. It's going to be up nearly 2% this week, probably even more pending today, which will put it on pace to even be almost better than the election week. So that's overall markets. Take a look at 10-year yield, down 2 days in a row. Hopefully make it here 3. The only thing is that U.S. dollar remains stubborn. And then last but not least, the small caps. So maybe those will start to break out of its rut. We'll close over 225. All right, so now individual names. And first I'll talk about Adobe, and it's capping nearly $10 here in the pre-market. So great stuff. The rest of my 432.50s are going to be up a couple 100% at least at the open if it holds here. But I mean, you look at a setup, and I was writing how to watch this morning. If you didn't know, I really like this setup, and it doesn't even I'm not someone who looks at charts and say, wow, you could, the chart is the be all end all on a stock, right? To me, it's like it's a mixture of fundamentals, technical analysis, the macro market environment, sentiment, all those different things, right? So when you look at Adobe, it kind of has like 2 of those things for sure. It has this setup here, this pincher. It looks primed, way oversold. You can see it's starting to spread out, which means it's like the turn. It's like the horses on a racetrack coming there around the turn, and that's when things get exciting. It looks the same to me here, or at least that's one of the analogies I guess you could look at. And then fundamental, you look at the fundamental, but just some of the metrics are at historical lows for Adobe, and it's positioned to take advantage of this AI boom. And I mean, it has been, but considering it was $580 stock back in September, I just think there's an opportunity. I'm not saying it gets back to 580, but I could see it trading into the 440, mid 440s early next week, and then if not higher. So still have the 432.50s. I guess at points yesterday would seem crazy to hold those, but I did. At some points I was able to get out for a little over 100%, but I held them. And then here it is gapping. So I'll close some of those, and then I added some more strikes into next week. So depending on what those open, I might look to close some of those out at the open just to cover some costs, and then ride the rest into next week. So that's Adobe. Really love that setup there. And then, comparison speaking, I'm not saying it's going to do the same thing, but take a look at United Rentals, just in monster 5-session $100 rally on URI over the last 5 sessions. Some of that has to do with their acquisition news, but I think some of that's with the Cali fires, right? It's just a matter of time before that demand starts to fill the pockets of some of these companies. So that's URI. UNH. So UNH, I outlined on a watch list yesterday. Similar to the last couple of weeks, I've been looking for spec lotto calls. Have been a great trade. And then, so reversed some of the morning low. It was 520. And I think I was saying in the chat room, it was starting to move higher before the market opened. 528, 520. I'm like, don't bounce yet. Then it opens, and I was looking for some inexpensive calls to play for a spike. It gets up to 440, and then that was it. It couldn't break through and sold off for the rest of the day. I still think it's a nice setup here at some point for bounce play. You have analysts still bullish the name. They're just lowering their price targets. So I'll continue to look for that one for a trade. The 50-day, the 200-day moving average is 537. So that looks like a key spot too. So if we can get above that, maybe it works its way up to near $600 in the coming weeks and months. So definitely a name I'll continue to watch. TripAdvisor at close of multi-month highs yesterday, broke over that 1560. Well, it was actually 1557 was the big spot, up nearly 2.8%. Recouped the 2-session losses from last week in the last 4 sessions and then some. So I think the party's just started on this one. In my January strikes, which I've been holding for a couple weeks now, they were looking great the previous week, and then we had that sell-off. They were looking horrible, and then they've come back to life. I didn't want to be in a spot where I lost the profits again, so I closed them out yesterday. I was going to look for some more strikes, but I'll probably look to add some today. I still have the June calls too. I think it trades 17 plus as the next handle, and then once it gets over that, I think it's into the 20s. I was just talking about Netflix. They report Tuesday after the close. Roku, which doesn't really have as much sympathy move as it used to, but they'll report the last 2 years. They report on February 15th. So you have to think they're going to announce their earnings day is probably around, I think Valentine's Day is the 14th. So I don't think it'll be on the 15th because I think that's a Saturday. But it'll be somewhere around there. So either that week or the following week. Option expiration in February for the monthly is February 21st. So I'll probably look for some February 21st calls to encompass earnings, possibly the 105s, and look to get some premium builds into the report. So in the coming weeks, maybe it breaks into the mid 80s up to 90, and then I can lock some in to cover costs and ride the rest risk-free into earnings. That's kind of the plan for now on Roku. I've been staring at Cat all week, kind of on the same premise of URI, where there's going to be some definitely a benefit to some names that are going to get a tailwind from the tragic events over in California. And sure enough, it's up 5 days in a row, 8% move for Cat, which is pretty large on a five session basis. I don't want to chase it here. I think it trades to 400 in the next week or two, but I'll be patient, but don't be surprised if I had some strikes there. MDB as well, I was talking about on the watch list the last couple of days for a bounce. One of these days is going to embark on a move. Multi-day rally, maybe to 280 or so. It's trading close at 247. Sure enough, Cantor Fitzgerald initiated with an outperform rating this morning, so that's giving it a little bump too. But don't be surprised if I had some strikes there. Intuitive Surgical, I was hoping for follow through yesterday. I thought 578 would be the bottom of the rally, and it just chopped there the rest of the day. Then it had a late session rally to close at 584. Still have a few of my 600 strikes left. Don't be surprised if I get some other lottos, depending what the 595s look like. It's up at 593 here in the pre-market, so that could be a nice run here today. And all things considered, it closed up nearly 1% yesterday, and that's after its big move on Wednesday. So to me, that's a good sign. It means I don't think the buying is done on that one. And then last but not least here is Lam Research. And, unfortunately, I was looking for other lottos. You had the TSM news overnight into Thursday, and that was bumping up all the semi-names, especially names like ASML and Lam Research. So I was looking for inexpensive lottos to play for the spike. Sure enough, and then I look at the chart, I'm like, wow, if it breaks 85, it's off to the races. So I get the calls, it bounces for a little longer, and then it just gave all those gains back, closed under $80. It's gapping here in the pre-market, so still not ruling out the calls coming back to life. And depending on what the premium is looking to next week, and if it holds 82 or so, I may look for some more strikes there. And that's it, folks. Let's have a great day. I'll be back on audio later. Rockin'.